So before we jump and dive into that a bit more, can you give us a bit of background about the machine learning path at Mercado Libre and how long ago did they start down this path and how did it come about?
Okay, in my experience, we've been working with them for 5 years. So let's say 5 years ago, they started buying services from us as a startup providing, and Maquinari was already well known in Latin America and mostly in Argentina as the company doing data science or machine learning. And Mercado Libre already had a couple of teams doing some machine learning, but mostly for fraud detection. And then for the recommendations systems. So I'd say between 10 to 7 years ago, they started applying machine learning to solve production problems. When we started working with them, each team had a different approach. So some of them were trying to buy IBM Watson some years ago, as soon as it started, and they were really just doing all ad hoc stuff on the cloud, building their own pipelines and trying to solve their own little problems. But it was really very specific solutions to separate problems. Okay, and after we started working with them, we could see that they were not, it was different, separate solutions, separate efforts. Okay, and we were a company with already a lot of experience and doing a lot of machine learning for long. So you start to, have your processes and you don't reinvent the wheel. And we had our own little products to, wrap up models in a REST API, for example. So we could see there was a lot of our work we could, expand within the organization. So we started working with them maybe 5 years ago. And they started taking some things from us in this relationship. And now for the last 2 years, we started building this platform that now it's really easy in MercadoLibre to start experimenting, accessing data and getting infrastructure.
Yeah, so talk to us a bit about Fury. What is Fury and who came up with that name? Because that's a great name for it.
Yeah, it's a great name. So Fury, first it's called Fury because okay, we are lots of nerdy guys and Avengers stuff, and Nick Fury is such a badass, And then the guy who was leading this team, he had a patch on his eye. So nobody wanted to call him Fury, but then they got the chance to name something Fury that he was leading. So yeah, the name is just a product name, which is great, and it's by definition a platform as a service. Developers in Mercado Libre, you go to this Fury interface. It's basically a framework to develop and deploy microservices. So basically, when you start an app there, you get a repository with some standard interfaces, like it's going to be Dockerized. Your app's going to be Dockerized. So you write your repository. We have all a continuous integration, automatic process there that then you can, create infrastructure. You're abstracted from the infrastructure. The platform is cloud independent. We are working with different cloud providers. So for the developers, it's transparent. You don't really know where your application is being deployed. It scales automatically, provides monitoring and logs and metrics. So it's really we don't have DevOps in our teams. Okay, we have this Fury platform, and the badass DevOps are like building the platform and maintaining this, and developers are it's really abstracting them from a lot of things. And this allowed Mercado Libre to grow, from like 400 or 300 or 400 developers to about 3,000 in maybe 6-7 years.
Wow.
Okay, it's got Mercado Libre is 20 years old, so they started, and Mercado Libre had the biggest cloud, one of the biggest clouds in the world before the cloud was actually a thing, But then when data centers and when the cloud started, Mercado Libre had a lot of infrastructure. So they had to decide, are we going to keep this or are we going to move? So they decided to move to the cloud. So, through the years, you have to start, moving and migrating all your stuff and then, close all these data centers. And then it was this thing where you had, access to the cloud. Like you have your virtual machine and do whatever, and then that's impossible to maintain. Every team was choosing a different stack, a different technology, a different database, a different queue. So they started creating this Fury, saying, okay, let's build our own services. Let's abstract the services and the infrastructure. So that's Fury. It's for web apps.
So then, what exactly is this Fury data apps that comes in on the machine learning level?
Yeah, it's like an extension, in-house built extension to Fury to do data science and machine learning.
And can you give us a bit of an overview example, of how that looks?
Yes. First, we have it's working. It's been working for a year and a half. So actually, we started to bring users in very quickly with a very simple pipeline, and that is now maybe, I wouldn't say technical depth, but it's a great drawback. Our pipeline is, you have an ETL task, so you have a place where you can do data processing. So it's with a few clicks, you have a machine that has got access to the data sources, which was difficult for the teams to get. So now you really are in an environment, secure network environment with permissions to access all the data sources. And instances with enough power to do stuff, because again, microservices, you have these certain flavors that you're using for microservices, but then you need a lot of CPU or a lot of memory to process big data sets. So we gave them this. Then you click, you say, I want an ETL machine, and then you have your ETL process running there. Then similar to that, we had a training step, a machine where you are supposed to train your model. So then we started giving a versioning. So you version your ETL processes, then you version your training processes related to an ETL process. We store your data. The training machines, then you have GPUs, and you have a specific infrastructure for model training process. And then the output of a training is a model. And you can work with basically whatever technology, as long as it's Python. Like Henry Ford used to say, you can choose whatever color as long as it is black. So you can choose whatever technology to do your data science as long as it is Python. Okay, but okay, as always, it's a trade-off. I think it's a good trade-off. We're not saying it's only TensorFlow or it's only scikit-learn. It's whatever, as long as you can do it in Python. And then we have we automated the creating a REST API from your model. So data scientists can quickly get a model, and from there, just by configuration, they can deploy infrastructure that will automatically scale with your model serving as a REST API. Okay, so all these services, I want infrastructure with access to the data. I want a place where to train models, and I want an easy way to deploy a model. That, and then you have Jupyter Labs as a service. So you click and you say, I want a Jupyter Lab instance, and you get there a Jupyter Lab instance. So this is today mostly of what Fury Data Apps provides. Okay, so accessing the data was, it is a great problem in machine learning. So we are somehow attacking that. There are, as I said before, data is all over. It's all around. Yeah. So we have, some other teams working on a data lake. So some curated data is already in place there, and they have infrastructure like Hive and Presto to query and process that data. So we didn't have to solve it. So from your lab or from your ETL, you would just trigger a query on Hive, and it's going to process in some other infrastructure. And then some teams that are now working on, for example, Spark clusters that have access to the data. So we're not solving it ourselves as a core team of FDA, Fury Data Apps. But yeah.
But then does that plug into the Fury Data Apps?
Yeah, we want to enable what we call external innovation. So if the BI team is doing this great, Spark cluster, and they've got the resources to actually, maintain it, like they have like the budget for this infrastructure, and they can keep it alive, and they can provide it as a service. We want to be able to use it from FDA. So now there is another team. For example, we have a team working on a feature catalog in the fraud area. Okay, so they've got really strong representations of entities as payments or customers, okay? Real good machine learning valuable representations, and that they are computing almost real time, okay? So it's a big problem, and they are solving it because they need to, so we want to integrate with them, okay? So in that sense, we are building this platform, but we're also trying to not do everything, because, okay, we all know it's huge. You know, every little problem requires a team effort, a budget,